Kia ora, good evening. New Zealand Aluminium Smelters believes an agreement can be reached on its power supply agreement with Meridian Energy. Talks are underway this week over the pricing of a long-term electricity supply agreement, with the smelter losing money and looking for a better price to improve viability. New Zealand Aluminium Smelters Acting General Manager Stu Hamilton says NZAS believes a commercial agreement can be reached. Meanwhile, an advertising campaign by Invercargill City Council around the issue has been shelved for now. Deputy Mayor Darren Ludlow says Council was asked to hold off on the campaign and is waiting to see the outcome of negotiations. Cuts at the Department of Conservation were behind action by advocacy group Forest and Bird outside offices around the country today. The Southland office was one of at least 23 being targeted in the Love Dock Day, where public were asked to write messages of support and stick them to the front doors. The action was taken in protest to staff and budget cuts at Dock. Forest and Bird say the aim is to show government how important Dock is to New Zealand. Southland Chairman Craig Carson says he's afraid Dock's being gutted and values will be lost.
There's not going to be enough people. And it's also changing with some of their plans to bring in people who are basically bean counters running off looking for corporate sponsorship and that sort of thing. What Dock needs are the people who are doing the work, who know about conservation, highly trained in conservation and doing the conservation work, and that is what needs to be done, and that is what we're afraid is not going to get done.
And what are your thoughts on the response you've had here today?
Oh, I think it's great. It's good. It's good. People, appreciate Dock and what they do. I don't think there'll be any New Zealanders who haven't had some involvement with Dock, although they may not know it. They've visited national parks, they've been to reserves, they've walked around the beaches and wetlands. That's interacting with Dock. So everybody does it, and people like to keep it that way.
So you have messages here today that are being written in support of Dock, and there's also a petition. What are the next steps for those?
Well, it's really a matter of keeping the pressure on the government. This is not aimed at Dock, obviously. We're more than happy with what Dock are doing and we're here to support them. This is aimed at the government. They've had 54 million cut over the last 4 years. They were underfunded to begin with, always have been, and have done an extremely good job in spite of that, but it's just got to the point now that they can't keep going like that. So we just want people to keep pressure on the government, cancel the cuts, look at giving them more money. New Zealand depends on its image. The Kiwi, we call ourselves Kiwis. Do we want it to go extinct? That's the direction this government seems to be heading.
The opportunities from gas exploration in the Great South Basin are potentially very significant. That's according to Venture South and Chief Executive Paul Casson. Sarah Bedford spoke to him about Shell-led exploration in the Great South Basin, what it could mean for Southland and how the region's been preparing.
Over the past few years, Venture's been involved in numerous opportunities working with SIT and working with the oil industry and the oil sector, and we've been very proactive in terms of making sure that Southland has an opportunity to work with Shell, and also we will be working very closely with Shell. We'll welcome them to the region and look at any opportunities that we can add value to their project, but also it has to add value to Southland in terms of jobs, economic benefits, and also for our community, but also be sustainable, not sustainable, but also ensuring that the environment is not affected by any form of drilling.
Economically, what do you think it could be worth for us?
I wouldn't be able to put a figure on that at this stage. I think the benefits will be jobs, employment, servicing of the rigs, and also the potential plants that could be on shore down the track as well. So if we do a comparison between Taranaki and Southland, and I know that's big comparisons because Taranaki is New Plymouth is growing on the back of the oil sector and dairy. We've got dairy, but we could also have the opportunity for a significant economic boom, and that, I think the term was bonanza potentially in Southland should there be positive opportunities discovered.
Are we ready for it?
I think there's a good opportunity now to actually, and that's part of the consultation process, is that once we know after 40 days of where they will drill, what are the outcomes, what does the field look like potentially as well. That was one of the questions I asked as well. So what could the opportunities economically and jobs be? But it's until after they start drilling, the 40 days, they'll have a clear understanding of those potential opportunities for us.
Now, of course, the area of the Great South Basin in question is also close to Dunedin. Is Southland going to be in competition with Dunedin?
It depends, really. I think there is a 40-kilometre or more variance in terms of the location. Southland is obviously a little bit further down the coast, and Dunedin may have a better opportunity. However, that is yet to be decided. Depends on the seabed and the technical ability to actually, if there is gas, how do you actually get that onto shore? What is the ideal location? And also both Dunedin and Southland do have ports, and Southland has a lot of land that could also be used for part of that processing of gas on shore as well. So that is still up in the air, and I think there are a lot of technical and the exploratory needs to be done with regards to the seabed. It's either like going through a mountain sort of area. Do they take the pipe straight through that, or under or over? So that is up to really Shell. But we are certainly encouraged by their visits to Southland, and we will do as much as we possibly can to ensure that we are being proactive to try and attract the organisation or Shell to this part of the New Zealand.
Accommodation providers in the South Island saw guest nights rise more than 3.5% in February, following a drop of more than 5.5% the previous month. Nationally, seasonally adjusted guest nights were up 2.3%, with the South Island leading the increase, according to Statistics New Zealand's accommodation survey. In Southland, guest nights rose 6.5% on a year ago, following a fall of 4% the previous month. The region saw fewer domestic guests, but international visitor numbers rose. The survey records guests staying in hotels, motels, backpackers and holiday parks. After the break, autumn has arrived in the south, but the province is still to see the end of dry conditions. Welcome back. Conditions in the south remain dry, although there has been some recent improvement. While there has been rain this week, it hasn't been enough to return the region to normal. Rivers in western Southland are back to normal levels for this time of year, but rivers in northern Southland remain low. The Mataura River at northern Southland is facing the biggest issues, with water levels fluctuating close to cut-off points, meaning consent holders are having to check daily if they can take water. Water restrictions remain in place for Invercargill and Gore residents, although a fire ban has been lifted for about half the region. Southland District Council has been given the go-ahead to reduce the number of wards in the region. Council was given endorsement by the Local Government Commission to make changes to its representation system, and these will be used in the October elections. A Local Government Commission hearing was held last month following 6 appeals against the review. The Commission's decision endorses Council's proposal for 5 wards rather than the previous 12, dropping from 12 community boards to 8 and increasing the number of community development area subcommittees from 16 to 19. Cleaner environmental outcomes is something Southland dairy farmers are striving towards, and this was among the topics put to a group of Southland students today. The interaction of food production and how it impacts on soil and water took the pupils from the classroom to the dairy farm. Southland students travelled up to 150 kilometres today to get a first-hand look at the interaction between food production, soil and water, with the longer-term goal of improving understanding of the dairy industry. These environmental leaders, part of the Enviro Schools program, were exposed to the inner workings of dairy farming, from riparian planting to lowering the impact stock have on land. Enviro Schools environmental educator Mark Oster says getting students onto the dairy farm for the first time is a natural progression of the long-standing program.
This has grown partially out of their questions of what they wanted to find out about. They've got certain concepts about what's happening on dairy farms. So we wanted them to see a situation where dairy farming is being done in well-managed ways and having a positive impact. It's also important for them just to understand that food doesn't just come from the supermarket.
Among the 3 schools taking part, Fiordland College, teacher Vaughan Filmer says clarifying perceptions and raising students' awareness of their surroundings is important.
An issue that's sort of topical in Te Anau at the moment where we're from is we're predominantly deer farm and sheep farm, but there are a few dairy farms creeping in, and I guess dairy farming's got a bit of a reputation, so it's good for us to get the kids down here to see what it's all about and actually, hear it from the farmer's mouth per se.
The Riverton farm is owned by Federated Farmers Environment spokesperson Vaughan Templeton, who says opening the farm to the students helps them to understand the process.
The urban people seem to be quite concerned about farming practice, and we want to show them that we take a lot of pride in our farm, pride in our waterways, and we actually like the cows.
He says conservation and sustainability are high priorities, but believes urban people are sometimes given the wrong perception about the dairy industry. One of the topics put to the students was how new technology and better understanding have improved environmental practices and the bottom line. He says better environmental outcomes are important to Southland farmers.
Farmers have always really valued their land. You ask any farmer what his objective is, and it's to leave the land in better than he found it. But really, I think it's just been a matter of understanding that we've got to have the same impact in our waterways. We can either be good or bad for them. And it's quite amazing now. Interesting talking to farmers that they're feeling really proud about how they're looking after their waterways now.
Southland Girls High School student Lee Hodsell is from a dairy farm but says it was good to see how other people run their operations.
They're very environmentally friendly, like they've got their effluent sorted and filtering the solids from the liquids, and I'll be going back to Dad and giving him a few ideas.
It's hoped the exposure to the farming industry will improve understanding and ultimately encourage young people to consider farming futures. Margot Sutherland, South Today News. And that's it from news. Coming up on sport, sports journalist Joseph Romanos from the news team. Good night.